Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to discuss our forecast for the week ahead for the cryptocurrency market. We're going to have a look at how things could play out for Bitcoin here and where we think Bitcoin should find support before bouncing. We're also going to have a look at altcoins like XRP, tie in the Bitcoin dominance and Ethereum's performance from 2021. And we're going to tie this into what we see playing out here on the liquidation heat map. So short little weekly forecast video to start the week off. Let's jump into it. First place I want to start here is actually the total market cap of crypto. And what we can see here on total is that we've broken out from the previous highs set back in late December. And we are currently just grinding above this level and potentially looking for a back test of those old highs at 3.75 trillion. Now, if we have a look back to 2021, what we can see is that when price did break out, we did see a similar grind and struggle for the total market cap here of crypto. Once we did have that initial back test here, on the 4th of January in 2021, the market consolidated before it could then break to the upside. And then at the same time we've seen all of this happen was actually when we've seen Ethereum break into its new all-time high. And if we have a look at the way Ethereum is performing today, it hasn't broken to the upside and actually taken out its previous all-time high set back in 2021. However, it has broken above the highs it set back in March, June and December of last year. And the way Ethereum performs back in 2021 here, once it took out its 2018 highs, we did see a back test on ETH before it could then continue to the upside. And one thing to note on Ethereum here as well is that if we grab a fib tool from once ETH broke out from its 2018 all-time high to where it found its bottom, it did end up going on and doing just about a full extension from this range before then pulling back and crashing. And then ETH did have one final run in the second half of 2021. However, most of the altcoin market did not go on to run and set new highs. So just like back in 2021 here, once ETH had broken out, we did see a back test, and I do think we could be in for something similar like that where ETH does back test that high from December. But I actually think the more bullish scenario and the way things are most likely going to play out is that instead of actually being in the zone where we're looking to backtest the previous all-time high, ETH is most likely in this zone here where you can see that price just kind of grinded up and price action was really choppy until we eventually did get it back above that all-time high and then came in for that backtest. And I think it makes more sense to me right now that Ethereum is actually going to play out like that, and that if we do see Ethereum just kind of like grind to the upside like this before then eventually breaking out, then I think at this moment here is when we should start to expect a backtest of the previous all-time high. And then moving forward from there, we can start to draw our fib tool to start to look for price targets on Ethereum, depending on how high it moves. Once it does break out from the all-time high and actually backtest, like we've seen back here in 2017, from where Ethereum broke out from its all-time high at this point, this ended up being the low here for Ethereum. And then this push that ended up happening from here where Ethereum went from about $1,400 to about $4,000 almost gave us a full extension on the fib tool here and ended up marking our top. Now, if we jump over and have a look at Bitcoin, we can see that Bitcoin is breaking down from this support level here and that it is moving towards that level that we discussed in last week's video at 115,000, where I could see Bitcoin finding support here. The reasoning for this support level is we can see that Bitcoin has found support and resistance along this area over the course of the last 2 months. And from the current range that Bitcoin has formed, if we grab a fib tool and draw it out, you can see this is also the 702 Fibonacci retracement level here for Bitcoin in a retracement move. And if we tie that into how things are playing out here on the liquidation heat map, you can see that there isn't much liquidity to the downside lying below 116,000. And we have currently just seen that 116,000 level get taken out. However, I think we will go a little bit lower down to that 115.7 where that 702 fib lies. However, all liquidity to the downside has been taken out, and now all of the liquidity left in the market right now is short liquidations sitting up at about 120,000. So for the week ahead for Bitcoin, looking for it to get down and find support at about 115.7 and then move back up to 120,000. So we should see a bit of a choppy week, but overall something like this is how I could see things playing out over the course of the next few days. And I think what will ultimately drive price up higher for Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market is positive news coming out of the Eastern European drama. However, we should find out in the next 24 hours if Bitcoin will end up holding this level and moving higher. Now, moving over to XRP, we can see that XRP is still sitting in this channel, and those areas that we discussed last week around $2.9 to $3 are still in play here, and we are looking for XRP's price to move just a little bit lower. Most likely find support at the bottom of this range around $2.93, but it could also find support here as high as $3 if Bitcoin ends up bottoming at about 115,000. As far as things go for the Bitcoin dominance, what we have seen is the dominance actually find a bit of support here. However, it is still breaking to the downside, which is everything we want to see in the final late stages of a market cycle. The only thing that has me concerned here is that we haven't seen the DXY actually push back to the upside, and that if we remember back to 2021, what we ended up seeing was a 5-wave move to the upside for for the DXY before then it eventually broke down and gave us our alt season. And right now we still haven't seen the start of that fifth wave for the DXY. So for the week ahead, I would really like to see the DXY push higher and then reject from these levels, just like it did back here in 2021, where we ended up seeing that 5-wave move to the upside, and then our alt season was marked out here in this purple box. And one more thing to note is that last week we did actually see a new all-time high for the Dow Jones. It did instantly reject from that high. However, we do now have a new all-time high here for the Dow Jones, which is quite bullish for crypto. And if we do see continuation and the Dow continue to push higher, I would expect Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market to follow. So guys, for the week ahead, just looking for some pretty choppy price action, looking for a lot of the market to find support and actually bounce. And I think that will happen on the back of good news. As I do think a lot of the market is just in this wider accumulation structure that we are just waiting for it to get to the end of before we can see a break to the upside. However, I'll keep you guys updated if anything plays out through the week. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like on the video. If you're new here, subscribe down below. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below in the comment section. I'll catch you guys in the next one.